The first pale whisper of dawn creeps across the stone walls of Whitmore Abbey, and Brother Thomas stirs in his narrow cell. The rough wool blanket falls away as he rises, his movements slow and deliberate in the hushed silence that precedes the morning bell. Outside his small window, the world holds its breath in that precious moment between night and day, when even the wind seems to pause in reverence. His bare feet touch the cold flagstones, and he wraps his brown woolen habit around his shoulders like an embrace. The corridors of the abbey stretch before him, empty and echoing with the soft shuffle of his sandaled steps. Somewhere in the distance, water drips steadily from the stone fountain in the courtyard, a gentle percussion that has marked time in this place for 300 years. Brother Thomas has walked this path every morning for 15 years, ever since he first came to the abbey as a young man seeking purpose among the herbs and healing plants. His fingers trace the familiar grooves worn smooth in the wooden door handle as he steps outside into the garden that has become his sanctuary, his prayer, his life's work. The morning air is cool and sweet, carrying the mingled fragrances of dozens of healing plants that grow in careful rows throughout the cloister garden. Rosemary bushes stand like faithful sentinels along the eastern wall, their needle-like leaves dark green and glistening with dewdrops that catch the first golden rays of sunlight. Brother Thomas breathes deeply, letting the sharp, clean scent fill his lungs and clear his mind for the day's work ahead. He moves first to the lavender beds where purple spikes rise tall and proud, their flowers heavy with the morning's moisture. His weathered hands cup a cluster of blooms, and he closes his eyes, offering a silent prayer of gratitude for the healing gifts that grow here under God's watchful eye. The lavender will bring peace to troubled minds, ease the pain of those who cannot sleep, and calm the fears of children when mixed gently with warm honey. The sage plants whisper softly as he passes, their silvery green leaves releasing their earthy fragrance into the still air. Drops of dew cling to each leaf like tiny pearls, and Brother Thomas knows that by afternoon, these same plants will be warm and dry, ready to be gathered and hung in bundles to preserve their healing properties through the long winter months ahead. In the furthest corner of the garden, where the morning shadows still linger, the thyme spreads in a thick carpet of tiny leaves and delicate white flowers. Brother Thomas kneels beside this humble plant, his knees sinking into the soft earth that has been tended with such care. He runs his fingers gently through the thyme, releasing its strong, clean scent that speaks of health and vitality. This plant will ease the coughs of winter, strengthen weak lungs, and bring comfort to those who struggle to breathe. The garden is awakening around him now, as if responding to his presence and his prayers. Bees begin their lazy morning dance among the comfrey flowers, their gentle humming adding to the symphony of peace that fills this sacred space. The tall fennel plants sway slightly in a breeze so soft it barely disturbs the spider webs stretched between their yellow umbrella blooms, each web a masterpiece of nature's engineering, decorated with diamonds of morning dew. Brother Thomas rises slowly, his movements unhurried and contemplative. He walks the gravel paths between the raised beds, his trained eye noting which plants need water, which are ready for harvest, which require the gentle touch of pruning shears to encourage new growth. The chamomile spreads its daisy-like flowers in cheerful abundance, promising gentle sleep and peaceful dreams for those who will receive its gift. As the morning bell finally tolls across the abbey grounds, calling the brothers to lauds, Brother Thomas completes his circuit of the garden. His hands are already stained green from the morning's gentle examinations, and his habit carries the mingled scents of a dozen healing herbs. The garden has shared its morning secrets with him: the readiness of the elderflower for harvesting, the need for more water around the newly planted mint, the perfect timing for gathering the first vervain of the season. He pauses at the garden gate, looking back at the beds that stretch in orderly beauty toward the abbey walls. Here, in this quiet corner of medieval England, ancient wisdom grows in neat rows, waiting to heal, to comfort, to ease the suffering of body and spirit. The morning dew still glistens on leaf and flower, but already the sun is climbing higher, promising a day filled with the sacred work of tending, harvesting, and preparing the gifts that God has placed in his care. Brother Thomas pulls the wooden gate closed behind him and walks toward the chapel, carrying with him the peace of the morning garden and the gentle promise of healing that each new day brings. The morning mist clings to the monastery walls like a gentle prayer, and Brother Thomas steps into his beloved garden as the first pale light of spring touches the earth. His weathered hands, stained green from decades of working with God's healing plants, push open the wooden gate with the same reverence he brings to morning prayers. The air carries the sweet promise of new life, that unmistakable scent of soil awakening from winter's long sleep. Young William follows close behind, his novice robe still crisp and unstained, his eager eyes taking in every movement of his master. At barely 16, the boy has spent only 2 months in the monastery, but already his heart has been captured by the quiet magic of this sacred garden. Brother Thomas smiles softly, remembering his own wonder when he first entered this place 30 years ago, when his own master guided him along these same earthen paths. "Feel the soil, William," Brother Thomas says, his voice barely above a whisper, as gentle as the morning breeze that stirs the bare branches of the apple trees. He kneels beside the freshly turned bed, his knees finding the familiar grooves worn smooth by countless seasons of tending. His fingers disappear into the rich, dark earth, still cool and damp from the night's dew. "Tell me what you sense." William drops to his knees beside the older monk, his young hands tentative as they sink into the soil. His eyes close in concentration, and for a moment the garden holds its breath, waiting. "It feels alive," he whispers, wonder coloring his voice like sunlight through stained glass. As if something is stirring beneath, waiting to be born. Brother Thomas nods, his weathered face creasing into lines of quiet joy. "Yes, my child, the earth remembers everything, every seed that has slept here, every root that has drawn sustenance, every flower that has offered its healing gifts to those in need." He reaches into his worn leather pouch and withdraws a handful of tiny chamomile seeds, each one no larger than a grain of sand, yet carrying within it the power to soothe troubled minds and ease weary hearts. They work together in the comfortable silence that has grown between them over these past weeks, their movements falling into the ancient rhythm of planting. Brother Thomas shows William how to press each seed gently into the soil, not too deep, lest it struggle to find the light, not too shallow, lest the wind carry it away. His touch is that of a man who understands that healing begins not with the harvest, but with this sacred act of trust, placing tiny miracles into the earth's keeping. "My master once told me," Brother Thomas says softly, his voice carrying the weight of years and wisdom, that God first revealed the healing properties of plants to the hermit saints who lived alone in the wilderness. Saint Anthony discovered the calming power of lavender when he found it growing wild beside his desert cave, its purple blooms perfuming his evening prayers. His hands continue their gentle work as he speaks, each seed placed with the care of a craftsman creating something holy. William listens intently, his own hands growing more confident as they follow the older monk's example. The chamomile seeds disappear into their earthy beds like tiny stars being tucked into a dark velvet sky. "And the feverfew?" he asks, remembering the bitter herb they had prepared just yesterday for old Father Benedict's headaches. "Ah, feverfew," Brother Thomas chuckles softly, his eyes distant with memory. Legend tells us that Saint Bridget of Ireland first understood its power when she tended a child burning with fever. She gathered the small white flowers that grew wild beside her monastery walls, and as she crushed them between her fingers, she felt God's own healing touch flowing through her hands. He pauses in his planting, looking up at the pale spring sky where clouds drift like sheep across green pastures. "Every herb carries such stories, William. We are merely the latest in a long line of gardeners, tending gifts that have blessed countless generations." The sun climbs higher now, warming their backs as they work their way along the prepared beds. Other plants will come later, the hardy thyme and rosemary, the delicate calendula, the powerful comfrey with its deep healing roots. But for now, there is only this moment, this ancient dance between human hands and patient earth, this quiet communion with the wisdom of ages past. As the morning progresses, the monastery bells begin to chime the call to prayer, their bronze voices floating across the garden like a benediction. Brother Thomas and William rise slowly, brushing the dark soil from their hands, their work complete for now. Behind them, invisible miracles rest in their earthen beds, waiting for rain and sun and time to work their quiet magic. The garden sleeps peacefully in the growing warmth, holding its secrets close, while somewhere in the rich darkness, tiny seeds begin their ancient journey toward the light. The morning mist still clung to the monastery walls when the merchant's wife arrived at the gates, her face drawn with the familiar lines of chronic pain. Brother Thomas had seen that look countless times before, the tight set of shoulders, the careful way she held her head, as if any sudden movement might shatter the fragile peace she'd managed to find between the waves of agony that visited her daily. "The headaches," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the gentle lapping of the fountain in the courtyard. "They come with the sunrise and stay until well past vespers. I can barely tend to my children, barely manage our household accounts." Brother Thomas nodded with the understanding of one who had spent decades studying the language of suffering. He gestured toward the garden path, where dewdrops caught the early light like scattered diamonds on emerald leaves. "Come," he said softly, "let us walk among the healers." They moved slowly through the neat rows of herbs, their footsteps muffled by the soft earth still damp from the night's gentle rain. The air was sweet with the fragrance of chamomile and lavender, but Brother Thomas led her deeper into the garden, toward a section where small white flowers clustered like tiny stars against their feathery green backdrop. "Here grows feverfew," he said, kneeling beside the plants with the reverence of a man approaching an altar. "The common folk call it bachelor's buttons or featherfew, but we know it by its true calling, the headache herb, the pain soother, the gentle friend to those who suffer as you do." The merchant's wife watched as his weathered hands moved among the flowers, selecting only those that had opened fully to greet the morning sun. Each bloom was no larger than a silver coin, its white petals surrounding a golden center that seemed to glow with inner warmth. "My grandmother spoke of such a plant," she murmured, her voice carrying the weight of half-remembered stories. "She would brew teas from flowers gathered before dawn, speaking words of comfort over the steam. Wise women have always known feverfew's gifts," Brother Thomas replied, his fingers continuing their careful work. The harvested flowers collected in a woven basket lined with clean linen, each bloom a promise of relief to come. The ancients called it Parthenium, writing of its power to ease the suffering of womankind. Dioscorides himself praised its ability to calm the storms that rage within the head. As they worked together, she holding the basket while he selected each flower with deliberate care, Brother Thomas spoke of the plant's gentle nature. Unlike some herbs that work with force and sudden change, feverfew offers its healing like a patient friend. It whispers to the pain rather than shouting, coaxes rather than commands. The sun climbed higher, warming their backs as they moved through the feverfew patch. Bees hummed drowsily among the remaining flowers, and somewhere in the distance, the bell tower marked the hour with its bronze voice rolling across the countryside. "How do you know which flowers to choose?" she asked, watching his selective harvest with growing wonder. "Those that open their faces fully to the light carry the strongest medicine," he explained, his voice taking on the rhythm of ancient teaching. "We gather them when the dew still holds the night's cooling, before the day's heat draws away their essence. Each flower must be perfect. No brown edges, no insect damage, only pure white petals around centers bright as afternoon sunshine." When the basket held enough blooms for several months of healing, they returned to the monastery's still room, where copper pots gleamed on shelves lined with jars of dried herbs. Brother Thomas measured spring water into a small cauldron, setting it over the gentle flame that burned perpetually beneath the brewing station. "The water must be hot but not boiling," he instructed, adding measured handfuls of the fresh flowers. Feverfew gives up its gifts readily to those who ask with patience. The tisane began to release its subtle fragrance, earthy and green, with undertones of bitter wisdom. As they waited for the brew to reach perfect strength, Brother Thomas wrapped portions of the remaining flowers in squares of linen, showing her the proper way to dry them for future use. Hang these in a warm, airy place away from direct sunlight, he advised. They will serve you through winter's darkest months. The finished tisane glowed pale gold in a simple clay cup, its surface catching the light that streamed through the stillroom's tall windows. Drink this warm twice daily, Brother Thomas said, pressing the cup into her grateful hands. Morning and evening, when the world is quiet and your spirit most receptive to healing. She sipped the gentle brew, feeling its warmth spread through her chest like liquid peace. For the first time in weeks, the tight band around her temples seemed to soften, as if Feverfew's ancient wisdom was already beginning its quiet work of restoration. The first drops of rain begin to fall just as Brother Thomas finishes tending to the young mint seedlings in the eastern beds of the monastery garden. Each droplet catches the pale morning light before disappearing into the rich, dark earth between the tender green shoots. The air carries that unmistakable scent of approaching rain, fresh and clean, with hints of the lavender and rosemary that border the garden paths. Thomas straightens slowly, his weathered hands brushing soil from his rough woolen habit. At 62, he has learned to read the sky's moods as easily as he reads the ancient texts in the monastery library. The clouds gathering overhead promise a gentle, soaking rain, exactly what his herbs need after several days of warm sunshine. As the rainfall grows steadier, creating a soft percussion on the broad leaves of the comfrey plants, Thomas makes his way toward the herb drying shed tucked against the garden's southern wall. The wooden structure, built from oak beams and topped with a steep thatched roof, has sheltered generations of healing herbs through countless seasons of rain and sun. He pushes open the heavy wooden door, and immediately the mingled fragrances of dozens of drying herbs embrace him like old friends. Bundles of mint hang in neat rows from the rafters, spearmint with its bright, invigorating scent, peppermint with its cooling intensity, and the gentler apple mint that the novice monks favor for their evening teas. Between them sway clusters of chamomile, their small daisy-like flowers now papery and golden, releasing their honey-sweet aroma with each slight movement of air. The sound of rain on the wooden roof above creates a gentle, rhythmic drumming, soft and steady, like a lullaby whispered by the sky itself. Thomas settles onto a worn wooden stool beside his work table, a massive oak slab scarred and stained by decades of herb preparation. Before him sits his most treasured tool, a marble mortar and pestle, smooth as silk from years of grinding roots, seeds, and dried leaves into healing powders. He reaches up to select a bundle of lemon balm from the rafters, its heart-shaped leaves crackling softly as he unties the rough hemp cord that binds them. The herb releases its distinctive citrus fragrance, bright and clean, yet somehow comforting. Brother Thomas has grown lemon balm in this garden for over 30 years, watching it spread its cheerful presence along the paths where the younger monks walk during their evening meditations. Carefully, he strips the dried leaves from their stems, letting them fall into a wooden bowl beside the mortar. Each leaf is examined with the patient attention of one who understands that healing begins with respect for every small component of God's creation. Some leaves are set aside, too large, perhaps, or bearing the faintest hint of brown that suggests they were harvested a day too late. Only the perfect specimens will be ground into the powder that will soothe troubled sleepers and anxious hearts throughout the coming months. The rain continues its gentle conversation with the roof above, occasionally punctuated by the musical drip of water falling from the eaves into the wooden buckets Thomas has positioned to catch the precious rainfall. This water, blessed by its journey through the clean morning air, will nourish tomorrow's seedlings and fill the stone basins where he washes his hands between handling different herbs. He measures a small portion of lemon balm leaves into the mortar's smooth bowl and begins the ancient rhythm of grinding. The pestle moves in slow, deliberate circles, crushing the dried leaves with a sound like whispered prayers. Gradually, the leaves surrender their structure, transforming into a fine, fragrant powder the color of late summer grass. As he works, the scent of lemon balm mingles with the rain-washed air drifting through the shed's small windows. Thomas pauses occasionally to check his progress, lifting the pestle to examine the powder's consistency. Too coarse, and the healing compounds won't release properly when steeped in hot water. Too fine, and the powder becomes dusty, difficult to measure and prone to being lost on the slightest breeze. The rain shows no sign of stopping, and Thomas feels no urgency to return to the garden. This is part of the rhythm that has governed his life for so many years, times for planting and times for harvesting. Moments for working under the open sky and hours for the quiet, contemplative tasks that happen within these weathered walls. He reaches for another bundle of herbs, chamomile this time, and begins the process anew. Outside, the rain continues to fall on the mint beds, on the stone paths, on the ancient walls of the monastery itself. And in the herb-drying shed, surrounded by the gifts of countless growing seasons, Brother Thomas continues his patient work, grinding dried leaves into powders that will carry summer's healing touch through the darker months ahead. The morning mist still clings to the garden paths when heavy footsteps approach along the cobblestones. Brother Thomas looks up from where he has been examining the tender shoots of chamomile, their feathery leaves glistening with dew. The familiar sound of William the blacksmith's boots echoes against the monastery walls, but there is something different in his gait today. A hesitation, a careful favoring of one side. "Brother Thomas," William calls out, his voice carrying that particular quality of someone trying to mask discomfort. "Might you have a moment to spare for an old fool who got too familiar with his own forge?" The monk sets down his small harvesting basket and turns toward the sound, his brown robes rustling softly against the herbs that line the narrow pathway. William emerges from behind the espaliered pear trees, cradling his right hand against his leather apron. Even from several paces away, Brother Thomas can see the telltale redness that speaks of a fresh burn. "Come, my friend," the herbalist says gently, gesturing toward the southern wall of the garden where the morning sun has already begun to warm the stones. "Let us tend to that properly." They walk together in comfortable silence, passing the neat rows of lavender and rosemary, the wooden stakes that support climbing beans, and the carefully tended beds where countless healing plants grow in orderly abundance. The air carries the mingled fragrances of mint and thyme, sage and sweet woodruff, creating a tapestry of scents that seems to calm even before any remedy is applied. Near the warming wall, where the stones have absorbed the gentle heat of the early sun, a collection of clay pots sits arranged in careful precision. These vessels, glazed in earthy browns and greens, hold plants that would never survive the English winter outdoors. Brother Thomas approaches one particular pot, larger than the others, where thick, succulent leaves spread like green hands reaching toward the light. "Aloe vera," he murmurs, running his fingers along one of the plump leaves. "A gift from lands where the sun burns fierce and water is precious as gold. Come, William, let me see what the forge has done to you today." The blacksmith extends his hand with the careful movement of someone who has learned to respect fire. Across his palm and extending toward his fingers, an angry red welt marks where molten metal droplets found their mark. The burn is serious but clean, the kind that speaks of immediate attention and quick thinking. "I plunged it into the water barrel straight away," William explains, settling onto a low stone bench beside the wall. "But the heat went deep and it throbs with every heartbeat." Brother Thomas nods approvingly. "Wise of you. Cold water stops the burning from spreading deeper." He carefully selects one of the aloe's lower leaves, thick and heavy with the plant's precious gel. With a small, sharp knife, he makes a precise cut along one edge, revealing the clear, cooling substance within. "Hold your hand steady now," the monk instructs, his voice soft as morning mist. He gently squeezes the leaf, allowing the transparent gel to flow directly onto the angry burn. William draws in a sharp breath, then exhales slowly as the cooling begins. It draws the fire right out. He marvels, watching as Brother Thomas continues to apply the healing gel with careful, methodical movements. Where does such a plant come from? Surely not from English soil. Brother Thomas smiles as he works, his weathered hands sure and gentle. This little miracle traveled farther than most pilgrims ever dream. From the desert lands beyond Jerusalem, carried by merchants along routes older than our abbey. The Saracen healers prize it above rubies, and Arab traders brought it to the ports of Venice and Genoa. He continues to squeeze the leaf, ensuring every part of the burn receives the cooling treatment. From there, seeds and cuttings found their way into monastery gardens across Christendom. The knowledge travels with it how to tend these foreign plants, how to coax them to thrive in our cooler climate. The aloe gel creates a protective layer over the burn, already beginning to ease the angry redness. Brother Thomas wraps William's hand gently in a strip of clean linen, securing it with practiced efficiency. Keep this moist for 3 days, he instructs, cutting several more aloe leaves and wrapping them carefully. Apply fresh gel each morning and evening. The plant will draw out the heat and speed the healing. Your hand will be fit for the forge again within the week. William flexes his fingers experimentally, relief evident in his face. Brother, you tend miracles here in your garden. Plants from the Holy Land, growing beside our English herbs. The monk helps him to his feet, both men standing quietly for a moment in the peaceful morning light. Around them, the garden hums with life, bees visiting early flowers, the soft rustle of leaves in the warming breeze, the distant sound of chapel bells calling the faithful to prayer. The evening bells had just finished their gentle song across the monastery grounds when Brother Thomas found young William sitting by the herb garden's stone wall, his brow furrowed in concentration. The boy held a worn piece of parchment in his hands, muttering Latin names under his breath like a prayer he couldn't quite remember. "Struggling with your lessons again, my young friend?" Brother Thomas asked, his voice as warm as the honey they harvested from the abbey's hives. William looked up, his face flushed with embarrassment. "I keep forgetting which herbs help with sleeplessness, brother. Master Aldrich will test me tomorrow, and I fear I'll disappoint him again." The boy's shoulders sagged under the weight of his worry. Brother Thomas settled beside him on the sun-warmed stone, his brown robes rustling softly. "Come then, sometimes the best lessons aren't learned from parchment, but from the plants themselves." Together they rose and walked deeper into the garden, where the last rays of sunlight painted the paths golden. The air hung heavy with the day's warmth, carrying the mingled scents of rosemary, thyme, and something sweeter still. As they rounded the corner past the mint beds, William caught his first breath of it, a fragrance both soothing and clean, like sunshine distilled into perfume. "Ah," Brother Thomas smiled, "she calls to you already." Before them stretched row upon row of lavender, their purple spikes swaying gently in the evening breeze. The plants stood waist-high, their silver-green leaves creating neat pathways between the aromatic columns. Bees still hummed lazily among the flowers, drunk on nectar and the approaching twilight. "Hold out your hand," Brother Thomas instructed, and William obeyed. The monk guided the boy's palm to brush along the topmost flowers of a particularly full plant. As William's skin touched the delicate purple spikes, they released their essence into the cooling air, a scent so calming it seemed to slow his very heartbeat. "Lavandula," Brother Thomas said softly. "What does that word remind you of?" William closed his eyes, breathing deeply. "To wash," he ventured. "Laver," the monk confirmed. "To wash clean. The Romans brought this gift to our shores centuries ago, along with their roads and their baths. They would add dried lavender to their washing water, perfuming their linens and their skin." He plucked a single stem and held it beneath William's nose. But they discovered something else, that the scent brought peace to troubled minds and rest to weary bodies. They walked slowly between the rows, their footsteps silent on the earth. Brother Thomas encouraged William to touch plant after plant, releasing wave after wave of the tranquil fragrance. The boy's breathing grew slower, deeper, as the essence worked its ancient magic. "When someone comes to us unable to sleep," Brother Thomas continued, his voice taking on the rhythm of evening prayer, we might brew them tea from these very flowers. Or we fill small linen sachets with the dried buds to place beneath their pillow. He demonstrated, crushing a few flowers between his fingers. The Romans believed lavender could chase away evil spirits, but we know something even more wonderful. It chases away the worries that keep us awake. William nodded, understanding beginning to dawn in his eyes like the first stars appearing overhead. So when the mind races with troubles, lavender brings it home to peace, Brother Thomas finished. Just as it's bringing you peace now. And indeed it was. The boy's shoulders had relaxed, his breathing had steadied, and the furrow had smoothed from his brow. Around them, the garden settled into its evening rest. Crickets began their gentle chorus, and somewhere in the distance, a nightingale tested its first tentative notes. They gathered a small bundle of the purple stems as the sky deepened to violet overhead. Brother Thomas taught William how to strip the flowers cleanly, how to judge which buds held the most potent essence, how to dry them properly in the monastery's herb loft where they would hang like fragrant prayers. Remember this evening, William, the monk said as they walked back toward the warm glow of the monastery windows. When you're asked about sleeplessness, don't think of words on parchment. Think of this moment, the purple flowers against the evening sky, the peace settling into your bones, the way your eyelids grew heavy with contentment. William clutched the lavender bundle to his chest, already feeling drowsiness creeping through his limbs like honey. I'll remember, Brother Thomas. I'll remember the way it whispered rest to my very soul. Above them, the first evening star appeared, watching over the garden where Roman wisdom grew in English soil, where ancient remedies waited patiently for modern worries, where lavender bloomed eternal, purple peace in a world that had forgotten how to be still. The first light of St. Fiaker's feast day filters through the morning mist, casting a gentle golden glow across the monastery's herb garden. Brother Thomas kneels among the rows of sacred basil, his weathered hands carefully brushing dew from the tender leaves. Today is special. The abbot will come to bless these healing plants that have flourished under his patient care throughout the growing season. The garden awakens slowly around him. Bees hum drowsily among the late-blooming flowers of the bergamot, their wings heavy with moisture from the cool morning air. The scent of mint rises with each gentle breeze, mingling with the earthy fragrance of turned soil and the green smell of growing things. Brother Thomas breathes deeply, offering his own silent prayer of gratitude for this sanctuary of healing herbs. As the sun climbs higher, the monastery bells begin their gentle call to morning prayers. Their bronze voices echo across the garden walls, and Brother Thomas knows the abbot will soon arrive. He stands slowly, brushing soil from his brown robes, and surveys the pathways he has swept clean with fresh sand. Every plant stands ready for this sacred moment. The chamomile with its daisy-like faces turned toward the light, the rosemary hedges releasing their piney fragrance into the warming air. The wooden gate creaks softly as the abbot enters, his white robes flowing like gentle clouds across the garden paths. Brother Thomas bows respectfully, then begins to guide his superior along the carefully planned routes between the raised beds. They start near the kitchen garden, where the culinary herbs grow in neat, abundant rows. The oregano spreads in silver-green mats, its tiny flowers attracting butterflies that dance from bloom to bloom. These herbs feed both body and soul. The abbot observes quietly, running his fingers along a sprig of thyme. The small leaves release their warm, peppery scent at his touch. Brother Thomas nods, explaining how the cooks use these plants daily to enhance the simple meals that nourish the community. The sage grows tall and proud, its velvety leaves catching drops of morning dew like tiny jewels. They move deeper into the garden, where the medicinal plants grow in sections organized by their healing properties. The calendula blooms in shades of gold and orange, their petals ready to be harvested for soothing salves. Nearby, the purple spikes of lavender stand at attention, their fragrance so concentrated it seems to shimmer in the warm air. Brother Thomas explains how these flowers calm troubled minds and help the sleepless find rest. The abbot pauses at the section dedicated to respiratory ailments, where mullein grows tall with its soft, fuzzy leaves and yellow flower spikes reaching toward heaven. Beside it, the horehound spreads its crinkled leaves, and the colt's foot shows its distinctive heart-shaped foliage. God's pharmacy, the abbot murmurs with reverence, touching each plant gently as if blessing it individually. As they continue their procession, the abbot produces a small brass censer from beneath his robes. The sweet smoke of frankincense begins to curl upward, carried by the gentle breeze to mingle with the natural perfumes of the garden. Brother Thomas leads him to the holy basil, explaining how this sacred plant bridges the gap between earthly healing and divine blessing. The leaves seem to shimmer as the incense smoke passes over them. They pause at the well in the garden center, where water bubbles up from deep springs. The abbot dips his fingers in the cool water and sprinkles it gently over the nearby beds of lemon balm and sweet sisal. The water beads on the leaves like tiny blessings, each drop catching the sunlight before slowly absorbing into the grateful plants. The procession ends near the infirmary, where the most potent healing herbs grow in a sheltered corner. Here, the comfrey spreads its broad leaves like protective hands, and the echinacea stands tall with its purple daisy faces. The abbot offers a final prayer, his voice joining with the humming of bees and the gentle rustle of leaves in the warming breeze. As the blessing concludes, Brother Thomas feels a deep peace settle over the garden. The plants seem to stand a little taller, their colors more vibrant in the blessed morning light. The scent of incense lingers, weaving itself into the tapestry of natural fragrances that make this place so sacred. The abbot places a gentle hand on Brother Thomas's shoulder. "You have created something beautiful here," he says softly, "a place where God's healing touches the earth." As they walk back toward the monastery buildings, the garden continues its quiet work of growing and healing, blessed now for another year of service to all who seek its gentle remedies. The first light of dawn filters through the monastery walls, casting long shadows across the cobblestones as Brother Thomas makes his way to the garden. The air is thick with the sweet perfume of summer blooms, and dew clings to every leaf like tiny crystals catching the early morning sun. This is the hour he treasures most, when the garden belongs entirely to him and God, before the day's heat begins to rise. The wooden gate creaks softly on its hinges as he enters his sanctuary. Before him stretches a tapestry of green abundance, every bed overflowing with the full glory of midsummer. The calendula beds glow like small suns, their orange and gold petals unfurling toward the light. Nearby, the purple spires of echinacea stand tall and proud, their cone-shaped centers dark and mysterious. And along the southern wall, the St. John's wort spreads in cheerful yellow clusters, its tiny flowers dotted like stars across the green carpet of leaves. Brother Thomas breathes deeply, filling his lungs with the garden's morning song. The scent of lavender mingles with the earthy fragrance of soil still damp from yesterday's gentle rain. He can hear the first tentative chirping of sparrows in the apple trees beyond the wall, and somewhere in the distance, the soft tolling of the chapel bell calling the brothers to morning prayers. But for now, this is his chapel, this living cathedral of healing herbs and flowering plants. He moves with the practiced grace of 20 years spent tending this sacred space, his sandaled feet silent on the packed earth paths. Each step is deliberate, reverent, as if he walks on hallowed ground. And perhaps he does, for what is more sacred than the art of healing? The ancient partnership between man and plant. He stops first at the calendula beds, kneeling on the soft earth beside the golden blooms. His weathered hands, stained green from years of working with herbs, reach out to gently cup a flower head. The petals are cool and silky beneath his fingers, heavy with morning dew. With practiced movements, he begins to harvest, selecting only the finest blooms at their peak of potency. Each flower is cut cleanly, with respect, with gratitude for the healing it will provide. The basket at his side fills slowly with golden treasure. These petals will become salves for wounds, oils for soothing burns, tinctures for calming inflammation. Brother Thomas has seen their gentle magic work countless times, the way a calendula poultice can draw infection from a wound, the way its golden essence can bring comfort to troubled skin. Moving deeper into the garden, he approaches the echinacea patch where purple coneflowers stand like sentinels in the strengthening light. The plants are at their magnificent peak, their stems thick and strong, their flower heads full and vibrant. He runs his fingers along the rough stems, feeling the life force that pulses within. These roots and leaves will strengthen the body's defenses, help fight off the fevers and ailments that come with the changing seasons. As he works, the garden comes alive around him. A gentle humming fills the air as bees emerge from their hives, drawn by the irresistible call of nectar-rich blooms. They move with purposeful grace among the borage flowers, their blue petals like tiny stars scattered across the green. The sound of their wings creates a drowsy harmony, a summer symphony that speaks of abundance and peace. Brother Thomas smiles as he watches them work. He and the bees are partners in this ancient dance of cultivation and harvest. They take what they need, give what they can, and leave the garden richer for their presence. A particularly bold bee lands on his outstretched hand, pausing for a moment as if in greeting, before continuing on its important mission. The sun climbs higher now, its warmth beginning to kiss his shoulders through his rough wool habit. But there is no hurry in his movements, no urgency in his task. This is meditation in motion, prayer made manifest through gentle action. Each plant he tends is a verse in the great song of creation. Each herb he harvests a note in the symphony of healing. Along the wall, the St. John's wort catches his attention, its yellow flowers glowing like captured sunlight. Legend says this herb holds the power of midsummer sun within its leaves and flowers, that it can drive away darkness both of body and spirit. Brother Thomas has seen its truth in the faces of those who come to him seeking help for melancholy and despair. As he fills his final basket with the golden blooms, a profound peace settles over him. The garden in summer's full glory is a testament to the endless generosity of creation, to the patient miracle of seed becoming flower, of earth becoming medicine. In this sacred space, surrounded by the gentle hum of bees and the sweet perfume of healing herbs, Brother Thomas knows he is exactly where God intended him to be. The morning light grows stronger, but his work is complete. With baskets full of nature's bounty, he makes his way back through the garden gate, carrying with him the promise of healing and the quiet joy of another day begun in paradise. The morning mist clung to the herb garden like a gentle blessing as Brother Thomas knelt among the chamomile beds, his weathered hands moving with practiced care through the delicate white flowers. The petals held droplets of dew that caught the early sunlight, each one a tiny prism casting miniature rainbows across his brown woolen sleeves. The air carried the sweet, apple-like fragrance of the chamomile blossoms, mingling with the earthy scent of rich monastery soil that had been tended for generations. From beyond the garden walls came the familiar sound of approaching footsteps on the cobblestone path. Brother Thomas looked up to see William the miller making his way through the morning shadows, his broad shoulders hunched with worry. In his arms, he carried his young daughter Margaret, no more than 7 summers old, her golden hair catching the filtered sunlight that streamed through the ancient oak trees surrounding the monastery grounds. The child's eyes held the hollow look of sleepless nights, dark circles beneath them telling the story of restless hours spent fighting invisible demons that came with dreams. Her small fingers clutched at her father's rough-spun tunic, seeking comfort in his familiar warmth and the steady rhythm of his breathing. "Brother Thomas," William called softly, his voice carrying the weight of a father's helpless concern. "My little Margaret, she hasn't slept peacefully since the fever broke. Every night, the nightmares come, and she wakes crying for monsters that aren't there." Brother Thomas set down his gathering basket and approached them with the unhurried grace that came from a lifetime devoted to healing both body and spirit. His kind eyes, lined with years of compassion, met Margaret's frightened gaze. "Come, child," he said gently, extending his hands. "Let us walk among God's pharmacy together." Margaret allowed herself to be lowered to the soft grass path that wound between the raised beds of herbs. Her bare feet made no sound as she followed Brother Thomas deeper into the garden, where the morning light filtered through climbing jasmine and honeysuckle that draped the wooden trellises. Bees moved lazily from blossom to blossom, their contented humming creating a natural lullaby that seemed to ease the tension from the child's small shoulders. Here, Brother Thomas said, stopping beside a patch of lemon balm whose heart-shaped leaves released their citrusy fragrance at the slightest touch. This gentle friend helps quiet troubled minds, and this, he moved to the chamomile bed, brings peaceful sleep to those who have forgotten how to rest. He plucked a few flower heads, crushing them gently between his fingers to release their soothing essence. Margaret breathed in the sweet scent, her eyelids fluttering as some ancient memory of comfort stirred within her. As Brother Thomas began gathering the healing herbs, Margaret wandered toward a sprawling patch of catnip, its soft gray-green leaves swaying gently in the morning breeze. She knelt among the plants, watching as several of the monastery cats emerged from their hiding places, drawn by the herb's irresistible appeal. A tabby cat with amber eyes approached her cautiously, then began rolling playfully among the stems, purring with such contentment that Margaret's mouth curved into her first smile in days. "The cats know something we often forget," Brother Thomas observed, watching the peaceful scene unfold. "They understand that nature provides exactly what we need for comfort and joy." He guided Margaret to a nearby cluster of lamb's ear, its leaves covered in the softest silvery down. "Touch these," he encouraged. "Rub them between your fingers." Margaret's small hands explored the velvety texture of the leaves, her eyes widening with wonder at their incredible softness. The simple act of touching something so gentle and pure seemed to anchor her to the present moment, drawing her away from the shadowy fears that had haunted her nights. Brother Thomas worked quietly nearby, combining the chamomile flowers with tender lemon balm leaves and delicate purple passion flower petals. His movements were deliberate and peaceful, each action performed as if it were a prayer. The herbs whispered against each other as he mixed them in a small linen pouch, their combined fragrances creating a symphony of tranquility. "God provides comfort in the simplest ways," he murmured, watching as Margaret continued to stroke the lamb's ear leaves, her breathing deep and steady now. Sometimes healing comes not from grand gestures, but from small moments of wonder. From the softness of a leaf, the purring of a cat, the sweetness of flowers that bloom just when we need them most. The sun climbed higher, warming the garden and releasing even more fragrant oils from the countless healing plants. Margaret's eyelids grew heavy as she sat among the herbs, surrounded by the gentle sounds of nature's awakening and the profound peace that dwelt within these sacred walls. The morning sun filters through the open doorway of the drying shed, casting long golden rectangles across the wooden floor where Brother Thomas kneels beside rows of woven reed mats. The air is thick with the concentrated essence of summer's harvest. Lavender mingles with rosemary, while the sharp sweetness of mint dances with the earthy warmth of sage. Each breath carries the promise of healing, the accumulated wisdom of months spent tending and gathering. Thomas moves with the deliberate care of someone who has performed this ritual countless times before. His weathered hands lift each sprig of chamomile, examining the delicate white and yellow flowers that will soon become soothing tea for troubled sleepers. The petals must be neither too dry nor too moist, a balance learned through years of patient observation. He arranges them in perfect rows, ensuring that air can circulate freely around each precious bloom. William sits cross-legged nearby, his young hands working steadily to bundle stems of rosemary with strips of dried grass. The needle-like leaves release their piney fragrance with each gentle touch, and he breathes deeply, letting the scent fill his lungs. Brother Thomas has taught him that patience is as essential as any ingredient, that rushing the process will rob the herbs of their potency, leaving only shadows of their former healing power. "Feel how the stems bend," Thomas murmurs, his voice barely above a whisper in the sacred quiet of the shed. When they snap cleanly, they are ready. When they merely bend, they need more time. His fingers demonstrate holding a sprig of thyme to the light streaming through the small window. The leaves have darkened to a deeper green, their edges beginning to curl inward like tiny hands folding in prayer. The heat of late summer presses against the shed's wooden walls, but inside, the temperature remains constant and controlled. Thomas has positioned the building to catch the morning sun while avoiding the harsh afternoon glare that could bleach the color from delicate petals. Bundles of earlier harvests hang from the rafters like sleeping bats, clusters of mint and nettle, their leaves now papery and concentrated with healing essence. William's movements have grown more assured over the weeks. He no longer fumbles with the grass ties or places stems too tightly together. His hands have learned the rhythm of preservation, the gentle art of creating something lasting from nature's brief abundance. As he works, he listens to the soft sounds of Brother Thomas turning leaves on nearby mats, a whispered rustling that speaks of care and reverence. A bee drifts through the open doorway, drawn by the lingering sweetness of dried meadowsweet. It hovers over the mats, then settles briefly on a cluster of dried borage flowers, their star-shaped petals still holding traces of their original blue. Thomas watches with a gentle smile, making no move to disturb the tiny visitor. Even here, in this place of preparation and preservation, life continues its ancient dance. The afternoon stretches languidly ahead, filled with the simple pleasure of useful work performed in comfortable silence. There is no urgency here, no pressing need to finish quickly. The herbs will take as long as they require, and Thomas has learned to match his pace to theirs. He moves between the mats like a monk at prayer, checking, adjusting, ensuring that each plant receives exactly what it needs to transform from fresh growth into concentrated medicine. As the sun climbs higher, the shed grows warmer, but never uncomfortably so. The thick stone walls and strategic positioning keep the space at precisely the right temperature for slow, gentle drying. William pauses in his bundling to watch a spider spinning its web in the corner, the silk catching and holding tiny motes of dust that dance in the golden light. Brother Thomas reaches for a bundle of dried lavender, its purple flowers now concentrated into small, potent spheres of fragrance. He holds it to his nose, inhaling deeply, then nods with satisfaction. These flowers will provide comfort to anxious souls through the long winter months ahead. Each carefully preserved herb represents not just knowledge and skill, but hope, the promise that healing will be available when it is most needed. The day settles around them like a comfortable blanket, filled with the quiet satisfaction of meaningful work and the deep peace that comes from being exactly where one belongs. In the growing shadows of the drying shed, surrounded by the concentrated essence of summer's bounty, time moves as slowly as honey, sweet and golden and perfectly unhurried. The November morning arrives wrapped in mist, the kind that clings to the earth like a gentle blessing. Brother Thomas steps into the herbalist's garden just as the sun begins to pierce through the gray veil, casting everything in a soft, golden light. The air carries the scent of wet earth and the last chrysanthemums, their bronze petals heavy with dew. From beyond the garden walls comes the sound of footsteps on cobblestones, slow and measured. The monastery gate creaks open and Thomas sees him, an elderly pilgrim, his walking staff worn smooth by countless miles, his cloak bearing the dust of many roads. The man's face tells stories of devotion and endurance, but his careful movements speak of deeper tales, of joints that ache with the memory of stone paths and mountain passes. Brother Benedict greets the traveler with warm bread and watered wine, but Thomas notices how the pilgrim winces as he settles onto the wooden bench. Years of walking and service to his faith have taken their toll. The monk approaches quietly, his sandaled feet barely disturbing the fallen leaves. "Good pilgrim," Thomas says gently, "I see the roads have been your faithful companion, but perhaps too faithful. Would you walk with me to the stream? There is something there that may bring you comfort." The pilgrim looks up with eyes that hold both weariness and curiosity. Together, they make their way through the garden, past the dormant herb beds where mint and chamomile sleep beneath a blanket of straw. The path winds between ancient stone walls, worn smooth by generations of contemplative footsteps. At the stream's edge stands a magnificent willow tree, its long branches trailing into the clear water like fingers blessing the flow. The tree has grown here for decades, its trunk thick and furrowed, its roots drinking deeply from the living water that feeds the monastery's garden. Even in November, with most of its leaves fallen, the willow maintains its graceful presence, swaying gently in the morning breeze. This tree, Brother Thomas says, running his hand along the bark, has been a healer longer than our monastery has stood. The ancients knew its gifts, and we have learned to honor that wisdom. He draws a small knife from his belt, its blade sharp but narrow. The inner bark, just beneath this rough outer layer, holds medicine that can ease the ache in weary joints. With careful movements, Thomas selects a younger branch, one that will not harm the tree's health. He makes a shallow cut, peeling away a strip of the outer bark to reveal the smooth, pale inner layer beneath. The bark comes away in long, fibrous strips, and he shows the pilgrim how the inner surface gleams with a slight moisture, holding the tree's healing essence. "See how the bark gives itself willingly," Thomas murmurs, his voice barely louder than the stream's gentle murmur. The willow understands suffering, its branches bend but do not break, its roots reach deep into the earth's wisdom. When we prepare this gift properly, it shares that understanding with our mortal bodies. They return to the monastery kitchen, where Thomas places the fresh bark strips on a clean wooden board. Using the flat side of his knife, he scrapes the inner bark into fine shavings, each curl releasing a faint, bitter scent that speaks of forests and flowing water. The pilgrim watches with quiet attention, his eyes following every careful movement. Brother Thomas fills a clay pot with clear spring water and sets it over the glowing coals of the kitchen fire. As the water begins to warm, he adds the willow bark shavings, stirring gently with a wooden spoon. The liquid slowly takes on a pale amber color, and a subtle aroma fills the kitchen, earthy and clean, like rain on summer bark. The old herbalists knew this remedy, Thomas says as they wait for the decoction to brew. Not just in our lands, but across the world, wherever willows grow by water. The tree teaches us patience. Its medicine cannot be rushed. We must let the water draw out the healing slowly, as the stream draws life from the earth. Time moves differently in the monastery kitchen, measured not by the bells of canonical hours, but by the gentle simmer of healing herbs. The willow bark tea deepens in color, and Thomas tests it carefully, finding the balance between strength and gentleness that will bring relief without harsh effects. He strains the liquid through a piece of clean linen, catching every fragment of bark. The tea that remains is clear and golden, holding within it the accumulated wisdom of seasons, the memory of sunlight on water, the quiet strength of roots grown deep. "Drink this while it's warm," Thomas says, offering the cup to the pilgrim. "Feel how the willow's flexibility enters your bones, how its patience soothes what time and roads have stiffened." The pilgrim accepts the cup with reverent hands, and in his first careful sip, centuries of healing knowledge pass from tree to stream to human need. The morning light slants through the monastery garden like liquid honey, painting everything it touches with autumn's gentle glow. Brother Thomas walks slowly along the gravel paths, his worn leather sandals crunching softly on the fallen leaves that carpet the walkways in shades of amber and rust. The air carries the sweet scent of ripening apples and the earthy fragrance of herbs settling into their winter rest. In the center bed, the calendula flowers catch the golden light like tiny suns scattered across the earth. Their petals, so bright they seem to hold fire within their silken folds, flutter gently in the warm breeze. Thomas kneels beside them, his weathered hands moving with practiced care as he plucks each perfect bloom. The flowers release their subtle honey fragrance as he gathers them into his wicker basket, each one a small treasure of healing light. The rose bushes along the stone wall have given up their summer blossoms, but now they offer a different gift. Heavy clusters of rose hips hang like tiny red lanterns among the thorny branches. Thomas moves to them next, his fingers gentle as he selects the plumpest fruits. He knows these crimson treasures hold within them the power to ward off winter's chill, their flesh rich with the essence that keeps bodies strong through the dark months ahead. As he works, a soft wind rustles through the ancient apple trees that stand sentinel over the garden. Their branches, heavy with golden fruit, cast shifting shadows on the herb beds below. These trees were planted by brothers who came before, their hands now dust, their voices silent, yet their gift of shade and sweetness lives on. Thomas pauses in his harvesting to listen to the whisper of leaves overhead, feeling the presence of all those who have tended this sacred space. The late-season herbs seem to glow with inner light in the slanted sunshine. The sage plants have put on their autumn dress of silvery green, their leaves soft as velvet beneath Thomas's touch. He pinches a few stems, breathing in their clean, purifying scent. Nearby, the rosemary stands tall and proud, its needle-like leaves dark against the golden light, promising to stay green through winter's embrace. A robin alights on the edge of the stone fountain, its red breast bright as the rose hips Thomas has been gathering. The little bird dips its beak into the clear water that bubbles gently from the carved stone fish at the fountain's center. The sound of water meeting stone creates a soft music that mingles with the distant toll of the monastery bells, marking the passage of this perfect autumn morning. Thomas straightens slowly, feeling the warmth of the sun on his back through his rough woolen habit. His basket grows heavy with the garden's final offerings, bundles of thyme releasing their woody fragrance, sprigs of mint that still hold summer's coolness, and handfuls of fennel seeds that rattle softly like tiny bells in their papery pods. The lavender plants, though past their prime blooming, still release their peaceful scent when brushed. Thomas runs his hand gently along their silver stems, remembering the height of summer when their purple spikes filled the air with drowsy sweetness. Even now, in autumn's golden hour, they offer their gift of calm to any who pause to receive it. From the kitchen garden comes the earthy scent of herbs drying in bundles beneath the eaves. Parsley and chives hang in neat rows, their green fading to brown as they give up their moisture to the warm air. Soon they will join the winter stores, ready to bring life and flavor to the simple meals that sustain the brotherhood through the cold months. As the sun climbs higher, painting the garden walls with warm light, Thomas feels the deep contentment that comes from work done in harmony with nature's rhythm. Each plant he tends, each remedy he prepares, connects him to the endless cycle of growth and rest, of giving and receiving that governs all living things. The golden light begins to shift as clouds drift across the sun, casting the garden in gentle shadow. Thomas gathers his tools and his harvest basket, heavy now with autumn's bounty. Tomorrow there will be other plants to tend, other remedies to prepare. But for now, he walks slowly toward the stone archway that leads back to the monastery, carrying with him the peace that flows like honey through these sacred hours of harvest time. The garden settles into quietude behind him, its treasures safely gathered, its healing presence a blessing that extends far beyond these ancient walls into the world beyond. The morning mist still clings to the monastery walls when Brother Francis arrives, his saddlebags heavy with parchment and precious inks. You watch from the garden as this learned monk from the great Abbey of Winchester dismounts his gentle mare, his robes dusted with the earth of many roads traveled. There's something reverent in the way he pauses at the garden gate, breathing deeply of the lavender and rosemary that frame the entrance to your world of healing herbs. Brother Thomas greets him with the quiet warmth that marks all true scholars, a recognition that passes between those who serve knowledge as faithfully as they serve God. They embrace briefly, and you hear the soft rustle of parchment as Brother Francis produces a letter from his abbot, written in careful Latin script, requesting copies of the monastery's herbal wisdom. The scriptorium feels different today, touched by an anticipation as gentle as morning light. Brother Francis has spread his materials across the broad oak table, sheets of vellum smooth as silk, bottles of ink that gleam like captured jewels, and quills cut from swan feathers, each one a perfect instrument for preserving knowledge. The autumn sunlight streams through tall windows, illuminating dust motes that dance like tiny spirits above the manuscripts. You settle into the familiar rhythm of documentation, your voice soft in the hushed chamber as you describe each plant's virtues. Brother Thomas moves between the garden and scriptorium, bringing fresh samples: a sprig of feverfew with its small white flowers, leaves of comfrey still damp with morning dew, the papery seed heads of poppy that rattle like tiny bells when shaken. Brother Francis works with the patience of centuries, his hand moving across the parchment in practiced strokes. Each letter forms with deliberate beauty: the curved spine of an S like a sleeping cat, the crossed arms of a T reaching toward heaven. Between the lines of text, he begins small illustrations: a delicate vine of ivy curling around the margin, a butterfly resting on a flower of St. John's wort, each detail rendered with loving precision. "Tell me of the chamomile prayers," he asks, his voice barely above a whisper. Brother Thomas nods and begins the ancient words passed down through generations of healers, the Latin flowing like a quiet stream. You watch as Brother Francis captures not just the recipe, 2 handfuls of dried flowers steeped in heated wine, but the proper invocations, the gentle blessing that transforms simple plants into instruments of God's healing grace. The hours pass unmarked by bells or obligations. There's only the soft scratch of quill on parchment, the rustle of turning pages, the occasional pause as Brother Thomas demonstrates the proper way to crush cardamom seeds or explains why angelica must be harvested before dawn on the feast day of its namesake saint. Each detail finds its place in the growing manuscript, knowledge flowing from mind to page like water finding its natural course. In the afternoon light, Brother Francis begins work on a full illumination: an elaborate capital letter H for herba, surrounded by a garden in miniature. Gold leaf catches the sun as he applies it with a brush fine as an eyelash. Tiny roses bloom in impossible perfection, their petals touched with red so pure it seems to glow from within. A small rabbit sits among painted lettuce leaves, while overhead, a goldfinch perches on a branch heavy with cherries. The work requires perfect stillness, perfect concentration. You find yourself holding your breath as Brother Francis guides his brush along the curve of a leaf, adding shadows that give depth to the flat surface. Time seems suspended in these moments, as if the very air holds its breath in reverence for the act of creation. As evening approaches, the manuscript has grown into something magical: not just a record of healing herbs, but a garden preserved in ink and gold, alive with beauty that will outlast the seasons. Brother Francis carefully blots the final letters, then bows his head in silent prayer. The knowledge that once lived only in Brother Thomas's mind and in the soil of your garden now rests safely on parchment, ready to travel to distant lands and future generations. Tomorrow, Brother Francis will continue his journey, carrying with him not just manuscripts but memories of this quiet place where wisdom grows alongside time and sage. But tonight, in the peaceful glow of Vespers candles, you rest in the satisfaction of knowledge preserved, of gifts passed forward like seeds scattered on fertile ground. The eternal cycle continues from earth to plant, from plant to healing, from one seeking mind to another, world without end. The first breath of winter whispers through the monastery garden on this gray October morning, carrying with it the promise of frost and the deep silence that comes with dormancy. Brother Thomas moves slowly along the gravel paths, his weathered hands trailing gently over the plants that have served so faithfully through the growing season. The air holds that particular crispness that speaks of change, of the earth preparing to draw its green life inward, to rest and restore in the months of quiet ahead. William walks beside him, their footsteps creating a soft rhythm on the frost-touched stones. Together, they begin the ancient ritual of preparing the garden for its winter sleep. The tender herbs that cannot endure the coming cold must be lifted from their beds, with the same reverence with which they were first planted in spring. Their roots, still warm with earth, are nestled carefully into clay pots filled with rich, dark soil that smells of centuries of growth and renewal. The lavender bushes, heavy with their final harvest, release their sweet fragrance into the cool air as the two men work. Each pot is lifted with deliberate care, carried to the warming shed where glowing embers in the small brazier will keep the most delicate plants alive through the harsh months. The shed fills slowly with these sleeping treasures, pots of rosemary and sage, delicate chamomile and precious ginger root, each one a promise of healing that will survive until spring returns. In the herb beds that will remain, Brother Thomas spreads thick layers of golden straw, his movements slow and meditative. The straw settles like a protective blanket over the dormant roots of the hardier plants, the comfrey and yarrow, the sturdy thyme and winter-hardy mint. Beneath this covering, life will continue its patient work, drawing strength from the earth's deep reserves, waiting for the sun's return. The drying shed has become a sanctuary of preserved abundance. Wooden boxes line the shelves, each one labeled in Brother Thomas's careful script with the names of herbs and their uses. Here lies feverfew for headaches, carefully dried and sealed away from moisture. There, bundles of meadowsweet hang from the rafters, their honey-sweet scent mixing with the sharper notes of dried nettle and the earthy richness of burdock root. William runs his fingers along the smooth wood of the storage boxes, marveling at the careful organization that will serve them through the cold months. Each herb has been harvested at the perfect moment, when its healing properties were strongest, then dried with patience and stored with wisdom passed down through generations of monastery brothers. The labels tell stories of healing willow bark for pain, elderflower for fever, hawthorn berries for the heart. As afternoon light filters through the small windows of the drying shed, Brother Thomas checks the moisture content of hanging herb bundles, ensuring that each one is perfectly preserved. His movements are unhurried, reverent, understanding that this work of preparation is as sacred as any prayer. The herbs rustle softly at his touch, their dried leaves whispering of summer days and gentle rain, of careful tending and patient growth. Outside, the garden settles into its winter stillness. The paths that bustled with activity during harvest time now lie quiet under the first fallen leaves. The raised beds, protected by their straw covering, rest peacefully in the growing dusk. Even in dormancy, there is beauty here. The architectural lines of the garden layout revealed now that summer's abundance has been gathered in, the stone borders creating patterns of quiet geometry against the earth. In the monastery's infirmary, the healing work continues without pause. The dried herbs will brew into teas that ease winter coughs, create poultices that heal chronic ailments, and provide comfort to those who suffer during the harsh months ahead. The garden's summer generosity, now preserved in jars and boxes, ensures that the work of healing need never stop, even when snow covers the beds and ice glazes the water barrels. As evening approaches, Brother Thomas and William make one final walk through the sleeping garden. The air is still and cold, carrying the scent of wood smoke from the monastery's chimneys and the clean smell of approaching frost. They move slowly, offering quiet gratitude for the season's abundance and gentle blessings for the rest to come. The garden sleeps now, but it is not empty. Beneath the straw and within the protected walls of the warming shed, life continues its patient work. Seeds rest in dark earth, roots gather strength, and dried herbs hold their healing power in willing suspension. Winter is not an ending, but a time of quiet preparation, of rest that makes possible the miracle of spring's return. In this sacred pause between seasons, the herbalist's work becomes one of patience and faith, trusting in cycles older than memory, knowing that healing, like the earth itself, requires both action and rest, both gathering and letting go. The December wind carried a familiar sound through the monastery walls, the deep, rattling cough that had plagued Thomas the Cooper for 3 weeks now. Brother Thomas looked up from his preparation table as the wooden door creaked open, admitting both the village craftsmen and a swirl of cold air that made the hanging herbs dance gently from their rafters. Brother Thomas, the cooper, wheezed, removing his wool cap with weathered hands. "This cough, it steals my sleep and troubles my work. The barrels won't shape themselves, but I can barely draw breath without this cursing fit." The monk smiled with gentle understanding, his hands already moving toward the familiar remedy. The herbalist's garden slept beneath snow now, but its summer bounty filled every corner of his workshop. Dried elderflowers hung in neat bundles, their cream-colored blossoms still holding the memory of June sunshine. Glass jars lined the shelves, each one carefully labeled in his precise script: ginger root, wild honey, chamomile, thyme. "Come, Thomas, sit by the brazier," Brother Thomas said, his voice soft as monastery bells at vespers. "Let us brew something to ease that troubled chest of yours." The cooper lowered himself onto the wooden bench, his breathing labored but grateful. He watched as the monk moved with practiced grace, selecting ingredients like a musician choosing notes for a sacred song. First came the elderflowers, 3 delicate heads, their tiny blossoms crumbling slightly between gentle fingers. Brother Thomas placed them in a ceramic bowl, their sweet fragrance already beginning to fill the air. "Elderflowers," the monk murmured, more to himself than to his patient, gathered when the summer sun kissed them at dawn. They carry within them the power to soothe inflammation and calm the passages that struggle with each breath. Next came the ginger root, wrinkled and golden brown, sliced paper-thin with a sharp knife that caught the firelight. Each slice released its warming essence, sharp, clean, awakening. Brother Thomas added 4 thin rounds to the bowl, their spicy scent mingling with the flower's sweetness. "And ginger," he continued, his movements unhurried, "brought by traders from distant lands where the sun burns bright all year. This root warms the body from within, encourages the humors to flow freely, and helps the chest release what troubles it." The water in the iron pot bubbled gently over the coals. Brother Thomas lifted it carefully, steam rising like prayers toward the wooden ceiling. He poured the hot water over the herbs, watching as the elderflowers began to dance in the amber liquid, the ginger releasing its golden essence into the brew. But the symphony was not yet complete. From a clay jar sealed with beeswax, Brother Thomas drew forth honey, thick, golden, catching the firelight like liquid amber. This was no ordinary sweetener, but the sacred work of the monastery's own bees, who had visited every flower in their garden throughout the long summer months. "Honey," he said, stirring 3 generous spoonfuls into the steaming cup, "the gift of our sisters who work without rest. They gather the essence of every healing plant, the lavender, the rosemary, the wild mint by the stream. In this honey lives the memory of our entire garden." Thomas the cooper watched, mesmerized, as the honey dissolved into spirals of gold, disappearing into the tea that now glowed amber in the ceramic cup. The steam rose in gentle curls, carrying with it the mingled scents of summer flowers, warming spice, and sweet earth. Brother Thomas lifted the cup carefully, testing its temperature against his wrist before offering it to his guest. "Breathe the steam first," he instructed gently. "Let it find its way to the places that ache." The cooper cupped his hands around the warm vessel, closing his eyes as the herbal vapors rose to meet him. For the first time in weeks, he drew a breath without coughing, deep, slow, filled with the essence of healing. The steam seemed to penetrate not just his chest, but his very soul, carrying warmth to cold places he hadn't even realized were there. "Each ingredient plays its part in God's great song," Brother Thomas said quietly, settling onto his own stool beside the brazier. "The elderflower soothes, the ginger warms, the honey heals. Together, they create something greater than anyone could manage alone." Thomas the cooper sipped the tea slowly, savoring not just its taste, floral, spicy, sweet, but the immediate sensation of relief spreading through his chest. The liquid was more than medicine. It was comfort made manifest, the careful attention of one soul tending to another's suffering. Outside, the December wind continued its cold song, but here in the herbalist's workshop, surrounded by the dried gifts of summer and warmed by the glow of healing brew, winter seemed a distant concern. The cooper's cough began to quiet, his breathing deepened, and Brother Thomas smiled, knowing that once again the simple gifts of earth and careful preparation had worked their ancient magic. The soft gray light of dawn creeps through the frost-etched windows of the monastery, and Brother Thomas pulls his woolen cloak tighter as he steps into the garden. February 2nd has arrived, Candlemas, the feast of lights that marks winter's slow retreat. The herb beds lie dormant beneath their blanket of snow, but the warming house holds treasures gathered from warmer months, waiting to serve this sacred day. In the monastery's workshop, the air carries the sweet, honeyed scent of beeswax melting in wide copper pots over gentle flames. Brother Thomas breathes deeply, letting the familiar aroma fill his lungs as he arranges bundles of dried lavender on the wooden table. The purple flowers, though withered by winter's touch, still hold their essence, a promise of summer meadows and peaceful sleep. The wax bubbles softly in its vessel, golden and pure, harvested from the hives that Brother Francis tends with such devotion. Thomas dips his fingers into a small bowl of rendered beeswax, testing its warmth. Perfect. Not too hot to burn the precious oils, not too cool to blend properly. He reaches for the first bundle of lavender, crushing the dried buds gently between his palms, releasing their oil into the morning air. Other brothers move quietly around the workshop, each tending to their own preparations. Brother Benedict carries armloads of wick material strips of linen saved from worn altar cloths, blessed and repurposed for this holy task. The rhythmic sound of their footsteps on the stone floor creates a meditation of its own, a gentle percussion that speaks of purpose and devotion. Thomas begins the ancient process, one his hands have learned through countless repetitions. He sprinkles the crushed lavender into the molten wax, stirring slowly with a wooden paddle worn smooth by years of use. The mixture swirls, purple fragments dancing in the golden pool like tiny flowers floating on a summer pond. The scent deepens, becoming richer, more complex, earth and sky, sleep and dreams, all captured in one perfect moment. The wicks hang ready from wooden frames, straight and true. Brother Thomas dips the first one into the fragrant mixture, watching as the wax coats the linen in a thin, even layer. He lifts it slowly, letting the excess drip back into the pot, then sets it aside to cool. The process requires patience. Each candle needs multiple dippings, each layer building upon the last, creating strength and beauty together. As the morning progresses, the workshop fills with the soft sounds of contemplative work. The gentle splash of wicks entering wax, the quiet murmur of prayers spoken under breath, the crackling of the fire that keeps the workspace warm. Through the small windows, snow continues to fall in fat, lazy flakes, but inside, the brothers create their own warmth through sacred labor. Thomas dips another wick, then another, building up a row of forming candles. With each immersion, they grow thicker, more substantial. The lavender oil infuses every layer, promising hours of gentle fragrance when these candles burn in chapel and chamber alike. He thinks of the healing properties locked within each one: lavender for calm, beeswax for purification, the careful intention woven through every step of their creation. By midday, dozens of candles hang drying, their surfaces smooth and gleaming. The largest ones, destined for the altar, stand thick as a man's wrist. Smaller ones, meant for personal devotion, taper gracefully to delicate points. Each one represents hours of patient work, prayers spoken in rhythm with the dipping, intentions set with every careful movement. As afternoon light filters through the workshop windows, Brother Thomas inspects the finished candles. He runs his fingers along their surfaces, checking for imperfections, ensuring each one meets the standard worthy of this holy day. The wax feels cool and solid now, ready to carry flame through the dark months ahead. When evening comes, the entire monastic community gathers in the chapel for the Candlemas blessing. Brother Thomas carries a wooden tray laden with their morning's work, each candle a small pillar of golden light waiting to be kindled. The chapel fills with the warm glow as one by one, the candles are lit, their gentle flames dancing in the still air. The scent of lavender and beeswax mingles with incense and old stone, creating an atmosphere of profound peace. Thomas closes his eyes and breathes deeply, feeling winter's grip begin to loosen. In the garden outside, spring still sleeps beneath the snow, but here in this moment, surrounded by the fruits of patient labor and faithful hands, the light has already begun its return. The candles burn steadily through the night, their healing fragrance drifting through the monastery corridors, carrying the essence of summer into winter's heart, promising that warmth and growth will come again. The winter wind whispers against the stone walls of the monastery as Brother Thomas adds another log to the fire in his chamber. The flames dance higher, casting warm golden light across the rough-hewn wooden shelves lined with dried herbs and ancient manuscripts. Outside, snow falls steadily, blanketing the dormant garden in pristine white silence. William sits cross-legged on a woven mat beside the hearth, his young face illuminated by the firelight. The day's work is done. The last of the willow bark has been ground to powder, the chamomile flowers sorted and stored in clay vessels, the tinctures checked and labeled. Now, in these precious evening hours, comes his favorite time of learning. "Tell me again about the great healers," William says softly, his voice barely audible above the crackling logs. The boy's eyes reflect the dancing flames as he settles more comfortably against a cushion stuffed with lavender. Brother Thomas settles into his chair, its worn wooden arms smooth from years of use. He pulls his woolen robe closer and gazes into the fire, as if seeing visions in the shifting embers. "Ah, my child," he begins, his voice taking on the gentle cadence of a storyteller. "The knowledge we tend here in our humble garden has traveled such extraordinary paths to reach us." The monk's weathered hands gesture slowly as he speaks. "Long before you or I walked these halls, there lived a woman of remarkable vision in the hills of Germany. Hildegard was her name, Hildegard of Bingen. She saw the world as a vast garden of divine healing, where every leaf and root held sacred purpose." William shifts slightly, drawing his knees up to his chest, completely absorbed. The fire pops softly, sending tiny sparks up the chimney. Hildegard would walk through her monastery gardens at dawn. Brother Thomas continues, his voice growing even more soothing, touching the plants as if greeting old friends. "She knew that fennel could ease the stomach's complaints, that nettle could purify the blood, that elderflower could break a fever. But more than this, she understood that healing came not just from the plants themselves, but from the love and intention with which they were gathered and prepared." The old monk pauses, reaching for a sprig of rosemary from a basket beside his chair. He crushes it gently between his fingers, releasing its piney fragrance into the warm air. "She wrote great books, filled with drawings of plants and recipes for healing. Her knowledge flows through the manuscripts we study here, passed down like precious seeds from one generation to the next." William breathes deeply, inhaling the rosemary's scent. "What about the physicians of the South?" he asks dreamily. "The ones who learned from the ancient Greeks?" "Ah, yes," a Brother Thomas nods, settling deeper into his chair. "In Salerno, where the Mediterranean sun warms the hillsides, there stands a great school of healing. For centuries, physicians have gathered there from all corners of the world, Christian and Muslim, Jewish and pagan, all united in their quest to understand the body's mysteries." The fire burns lower now, its light softer and more golden. The snow continues to fall outside the narrow window, each flake catching briefly in the firelight before disappearing into the darkness. They study the works of Dioscorides, who walked the ancient world cataloging every healing plant he encountered. They read the teachings of Galen, who first mapped the body's hidden pathways. In their gardens grow plants from distant lands, cinnamon from Ceylon, ginger from the Indies, precious saffron that blooms purple in Spanish fields. Brother Thomas's voice grows quieter still, almost a whisper. "But perhaps most important of all are the wise women who came before all the great scholars and physicians. In forest clearings and village squares, by kitchen hearths and at bedsides, these gentle souls first learned to listen to the plant's whispers." He closes his eyes briefly as if summoning their presence. Grandmothers who knew that willow bark could ease pain, who understood which mushrooms healed and which harmed. Midwives who guided new life into the world with gentle hands and ancient knowledge. Herbwives who walked the dawn paths, gathering dew-blessed leaves while the world still slept. The fire settles into glowing coals, radiating steady warmth. William's breathing has grown slow and regular, his eyelids heavy with approaching sleep. Their knowledge was not written in books, Brother Thomas whispers, but lived in patient observation, in tender care, in the sacred trust between healer and patient. They knew that true healing happens when we approach each plant, each person, each moment with reverence and love. The old monk's voice fades to barely a murmur. And so the knowledge travels on, my child, from their hands to ours, from our hands to yours, an unbroken chain of healing that stretches back to the very beginning of time, when the first human soul looked upon a plant and recognized its gift. Outside, the snow continues to fall, blanketing the sleeping garden in peaceful silence. The frost-touched earth crunches softly beneath leather boots as two figures emerge from the monastery's stone archway into the pre-dawn stillness. Brother Thomas adjusts his woolen habit against the December chill, his breath forming gentle clouds in the crystalline air. Beside him walks Master Edmund, a merchant whose fine woolen cloak speaks of prosperity earned through countless journeys across distant kingdoms. The herbalist's garden lies dormant beneath winter's gentle embrace, its raised beds outlined by low stone walls that glisten with morning dew now turned to delicate ice crystals. The skeletal frames of summer's bean poles stand like sleeping sentinels, while the hardy rosemary bushes maintain their fragrant vigil, their silver-green leaves catching the first pale rays of sunlight filtering through the bare branches of the ancient oak. Brother Thomas, the merchant, begins, his voice warm with emotion despite the cold morning air. I cannot find words sufficient to express my gratitude. Without your herbs, without your wisdom. His voice trails off, overwhelmed by the memory of those desperate hours months ago when his beloved wife, Catherine, labored to bring their child into the world. The monk's weathered hands rest gently clasped before him, his kind eyes reflecting the merchant's gratitude with quiet understanding. Master Edmund, the healing comes not from my hands, but through God's grace working within the plants he has provided. Your wife's strength, her will to live, her body's wisdom, these were the true healers. I merely offered what the garden could give. They walk slowly along the central path, their footsteps creating the only sound in the hushed landscape. The herb beds stretch on either side, most lying fallow now, though here and there hardy perennials show green beneath their protective covering of dried leaves and straw. The lavender bushes, though dormant, still release their subtle fragrance when the morning breeze stirs through their gray stems. Master Edmund reaches into his leather purse, producing a small cloth pouch that clinks softly with the weight of gold coins. Please, good brother, allow me to make a proper offering to the monastery. Your herbs saved not only my wife, but blessed us with a healthy son. Surely such a miracle deserves. Brother Thomas raises a gentle hand, his smile warm and serene. Your gratitude is gift enough, my friend. The monastery has all it needs. But he pauses thoughtfully, his gaze sweeping across the sleeping garden beds. There is something you might offer that would serve God's purpose more than gold. The merchant's eyebrows raise with interest, the pouch of coins forgotten in his palm. Name it, brother. Anything within my power. Seeds, the monk says simply, his voice carrying a note of quiet excitement. In your travels to distant lands, you must encounter plants unknown to our English soil. Seeds from healing herbs that grow in warmer climates, perhaps, or grains that might thrive in our cool summers. Knowledge of how foreign healers tend their sick, what plants they prize most highly. Master Edmund's face brightens with understanding, the gold coins returning to his purse as he considers this unexpected request. Indeed, just this past autumn, I traded in the markets of Byzantium. The healers there spoke of a plant they call Greek hay. They use it to help nursing mothers when their milk fails to flow properly. And in the ports of Flanders, I observed physicians using a strange root from the Orient, something they claimed could ease the pain of difficult joints. As they continue their slow circuit of the garden, tiny white flakes begin to drift down from the pewter sky, the year's first snow falling like a benediction upon the holy ground. The flakes settle on the broad leaves of the comfrey plants, on the dried seed heads of the fennel, on the stone walls that have witnessed countless seasons of growth and rest. Come spring, Brother Thomas muses, brushing a snowflake from his sleeve, when the earth warms and beckons new life forth, we might plant these foreign seeds in the bed near the south wall. The stones hold the sun's warmth longer there, might coax growth from seeds accustomed to gentler climates. They pause beside the well that serves the garden, its wooden bucket now adorned with delicate ice crystals. The snow falls more steadily now, transforming the familiar landscape into something magical and new, yet timeless in its peaceful beauty. Your wife, Brother Thomas asks gently, and the child they are well. Master Edmund's smile could warm the coldest winter morning. Thriving beyond all hope, good brother. Little William grows stronger each day, and Catherine. She speaks often of the kind monk who answered our desperate prayers. The snow continues its silent dance, covering the garden in nature's own blessing, promising rest, renewal, and the eternal promise of spring's return. In the gentle communion between merchant and monk, between gratitude given and humbly received, the true healing continues its quiet work. The warming shed holds a gentle quiet on this February morning, where winter's grip still claims the world beyond its wooden walls. Brother Thomas sits at his simple pine table, his weathered hands steady as they guide a quill across rough parchment. The scratch of ink against paper creates a soft rhythm, joined by the distant whisper of wind through bare branches and the occasional pop from the small fire that keeps the shed's air just warm enough for comfort. Before him spreads a map of dreams, sketches of garden beds drawn in careful lines, each section thoughtfully planned for the growing season ahead. His brown eyes, creased at the corners from years of squinting into summer sun, trace over the familiar shapes of his monastery's herb garden. Here, where he has spent nearly 3 decades tending the healing plants that serve his community, every corner holds memory and meaning. He dips his quill again, considering the companionship of plants as carefully as he might consider the friendship of fellow monks. Lavender and rosemary, he knows, flourish side by side, their silver-green foliage creating waves of calm in the southern beds. He sketches their placement with gentle strokes, imagining how their purple and blue flowers will dance together in summer breezes. The chamomile, he decides, will spread its cheerful white and yellow faces near the kitchen garden gate, where the sisters can easily gather its flowers for the evening tea that soothes restless sleepers. Its sweet, apple-like fragrance will greet visitors with the promise of peace, and its hardy nature will forgive the occasional wayward step from hurried feet. Brother Thomas pauses, his quill hovering above the parchment as he contemplates the meditation corner, that sacred space where comfrey and calendula have grown together for so many years. The comfrey's broad leaves create cool shadows where the smaller calendula can nestle, its orange petals bright as scattered coins against the darker green. Both plants heal, one mending bones and muscles, the other gentle wounds of skin and spirit. Outside, though he cannot yet see it clearly through the shed's small window, life stirs beneath winter's white blanket. The first crocus shoots, brave as young knights, push through patches where the snow has begun to thin. Their green points emerge with determination, carrying within them the promise of purple and yellow cups that will soon open to catch the strengthening light of late winter sun. He turns his attention to the physic garden's eastern corner, where the soil stays moist from the nearby well. Here, he plans to expand the bed of meadowsweet, whose creamy white flowers will eventually provide relief from pain and fever. He sketches a careful border of sweet woodruff around its edges, knowing that these two plants will create their own healing partnership. The meadowsweet reaching tall toward light, the woodruff carpeting the ground with star-shaped leaves and tiny white blossoms. The morning grows warmer as he works, the fire settling into steady coals that cast a gentle glow across his papers. Brother Thomas removes his woolen cloak, draping it carefully over the back of his chair. His simple brown habit, worn soft from years of faithful service, moves easily as he leans forward to add details to his sketches. Near the garden center, where a small stone cross marks the heart of this sacred growing space, he envisions a circle of healing mint, spearmint and peppermint intertwined, their runners spreading in controlled abundance. The sisters use these herbs daily, brewing them into teas that settle upset stomachs and clear congested chests. He smiles, remembering how the mint's vigorous growth requires gentle but firm boundaries, much like the enthusiastic novices who sometimes forget to walk carefully between the planted rows. As the sun climbs higher, its light begins to find the shed's window, casting rectangular patches of warmth across his planning table. Brother Thomas sets down his quill and flexes his fingers, working out the gentle stiffness that comes from holding tools steady for long periods. The scratching of his pen gives way to deeper silence, broken only by the soft settling of burning wood and the distant sound of his fellow monks beginning their morning prayers. He closes his eyes for a moment, breathing deeply of the warming air that carries hints of wood smoke and the promise of earth awakening. In his mind's eye, he can see his garden as it will be rows of green abundance, each plant in its perfect place, the whole space humming with quiet purpose under summer skies. When he opens his eyes again, Brother Thomas reaches for his quill once more. There is still much planning to be done, and spring, though still weeks away, will arrive with work that requires this careful preparation. Outside, the crocus shoots grow taller, their green promises pushing steadily through the last of winter's snow. The morning mist clings to the monastery walls like a soft gray shawl as Brother Thomas tends to his beloved herb garden. The autumn air carries the earthy scent of damp soil and the lingering fragrance of late-blooming lavender. His weathered hands move with practiced grace among the plants, gathering the last precious fennel seeds before the first frost claims them. The gentle creak of the wooden garden gate draws his attention. A young woman approaches along the cobblestone path, her footsteps barely audible in the hushed dawn light. She cradles a small bundle against her chest, her face etched with the exhaustion that only a sleepless mother knows. The infant in her arms whimpers softly, a sound that tugs at Brother Thomas's heart like a prayer. "Good morning, child," he says, his voice warm as honey tea. "What troubles bring you to our garden this early hour?" The mother's eyes are rimmed with tears of weariness. "Brother Thomas, my little one has not slept peacefully in days. His belly seems to pain him so, and nothing I do brings comfort. The midwife in the village said you might know of gentle remedies." Brother Thomas sets down his woven basket and approaches with slow, deliberate steps. His brown robes rustle softly in the morning breeze. "Come, let us sit upon this bench where the morning sun warms the stones. Tell me of his symptoms." They settle together on the ancient stone bench, worn smooth by countless visitors seeking healing. The baby's face is flushed, his tiny fists clenched as another wave of discomfort passes through his small frame. Brother Thomas observes with the patient eyes of one who has witnessed countless such moments over his decades of service. The little one's stomach is unsettled. He murmurs, his voice barely above a whisper. This is not uncommon in babes so young. Their bodies are learning the ways of this world, and sometimes the adjustment brings discomfort. Rising slowly, Brother Thomas walks to a section of his garden where tall fennel plants sway gently in the breeze. Their feathery leaves catch droplets of dew that sparkle like tiny diamonds in the growing light. He harvests several seed heads, their sweet anise fragrance filling the air. Fennel has been a friend to mothers and babies since time immemorial, he explains as he returns to the bench. The seeds, when steeped gently in hot water, create a tea that soothes the stomach. You will drink this tea, dear mother, and through your milk, the healing properties will reach your child. His movements are deliberate and calming as he crushes a small portion of the seeds between his palms. The aromatic oils release their ancient promise of comfort. From a leather pouch at his waist, he produces a small clay vessel, already warmed by the morning sun. "We shall prepare this together," he says, his voice carrying the reverence of a sacred ritual. Healing is not merely in the herbs themselves, but in the love and intention with which they are prepared. As they wait for the tea to steep, Brother Thomas reaches for another precious plant from his collection. The chamomile flowers, dried and carefully preserved, release their apple-sweet fragrance as he gently crushes them. He produces a small vial of olive oil, blessed and pure. "Now watch carefully," he instructs, his weathered hands demonstrating with infinite gentleness. Just a few drops of oil and the smallest pinch of chamomile. We warm it between our palms like so until it carries the essence of healing. The baby has grown quieter, perhaps soothed by the monk's peaceful presence and the rhythmic sound of his voice. Brother Thomas's hands, marked by years of garden work and prayer, move with surprising tenderness as he shows the mother how to apply the gentlest pressure to the infant's belly. "Small circles," he murmurs, his touch barely grazing the baby's soft skin through the swaddling cloth. Like the wheels of time turning slowly, bringing peace to troubled places. Feel how his breathing deepens. His body knows this kindness. The monastery bells chime softly in the distance, calling the brothers to morning prayer. The sound drifts across the garden like a benediction, blessing this moment of healing touch and maternal love. The baby's whimpering has ceased, replaced by the deep, even breathing of natural sleep. God's love flows through the simplest acts of care. Brother Thomas whispers, his eyes reflecting decades of quiet wisdom. In every gentle touch, every soothing word, every patient moment spent in service to another's well-being, we become vessels of divine compassion. The mother's tears now flow from gratitude rather than despair. She cradles her peacefully sleeping child while sipping the warm fennel tea, its subtle sweetness carrying the promise of restful nights ahead. The morning sun climbs higher, painting the garden in shades of gold and amber, blessing this ancient dance of healing that has comforted countless generations before and will continue long after the current moment passes into memory. The morning air carries a different quality now, softer somehow, as if winter's sharp edges have been worn smooth by time's gentle passage. Brother Thomas steps through the wooden gate of the monastery garden, his woolen robes rustling quietly against the damp earth. The sun, climbing higher with each passing day, casts long golden fingers across the dark soil where tiny green promises have begun to emerge. William follows close behind, his young footsteps careful and reverent in this sacred space where healing and hope intertwine. The boy's breath forms small puffs of vapor in the cool air, but there is warmth here too, a subtle shift that speaks of seasons turning, of life stirring beneath the surface of things. Brother Thomas kneels slowly, his weathered hands pressing gently into the earth beside a cluster of tender shoots. These first brave messengers of spring push upward through the dark loam, their pale green tips glowing like tiny candles in the morning light. Each emerging leaf is a testament to faith, faith in the eternal cycle, faith in the promise that winter's grip will always, eventually, release its hold. "See here, William," the old monk whispers, his voice barely disturbing the garden's peaceful hush. The comfrey stirs, and there, do you recognize those heart-shaped leaves pushing through the soil? William crouches beside his teacher, his eyes bright with recognition. "Plantain, Brother Thomas, Mother Earth's own bandage, you called it." His voice carries the quiet pride of hard-won knowledge, months of patient learning now bearing fruit like these tender plants around them. The garden stretches before them in neat, ordered rows, each bed marked with wooden stakes bearing the careful script of last autumn's planning. But beneath this human order lies something far more ancient, the deep wisdom of seeds that know their time, of roots that drink from hidden springs, of leaves that unfurl according to rhythms older than the monastery itself. Brother Thomas moves slowly through the awakening garden, his fingers trailing gently over the emerging growth. Here, the first bold shoots of nettle pierce the earth like tiny spears of deepest green. There, the delicate fronds of feverfew uncurl like miniature ferns, each leaf perfectly formed despite its tender youth. The very air seems to shimmer with possibility, with the promise of healing that lies dormant in each small plant. "In my homeland," William says softly, watching a pair of sparrows search for seeds among the beds, "my grandmother would say the earth dreams all winter long. She said spring was when the dreams became real." Brother Thomas nods slowly, his weathered face creased with gentle approval. "Your grandmother was wise, young William. The earth does indeed dream, dreams of mint to soothe troubled stomachs, dreams of chamomile to ease restless minds, dreams of sage to cleanse and purify." He pauses beside a patch where tiny rosemary shoots have begun their slow emergence. "And we are the guardians of these dreams made manifest." The morning progresses in peaceful rhythm. They move through the garden with quiet purpose, checking each bed for signs of life, marking the progress of seeds planted with such hope in the dark days of late winter. The sun climbs higher, its rays growing stronger, coaxing more green shoots from their earthen beds with each passing moment. In the corner where they planted the healing herbs for women's ailments, delicate ladies' mantle leaves spread like tiny fans, catching droplets of morning dew that sparkle like diamonds in the growing light. Nearby, the first brave shoots of yarrow push upward, their feathery leaves already showing the intricate patterns that will make them so valuable for binding wounds and stanching blood. Brother Thomas pauses often to offer quiet prayers of thanksgiving, his voice blending with the soft sounds of the garden, the gentle drip of dew from branches, the whisper of wind through the bare fruit trees along the garden's edge, the distant tolling of the monastery bells calling the brothers to morning prayer. "Each spring teaches us the same lesson," he says, settling back on his heels beside a row of emerging time. "That endings are also beginnings, that what appears to be death is merely rest, that the earth keeps faith even when we cannot see the signs of her promise." William nods, understanding flowing across his face like sunlight breaking through clouds. Around them, the garden hums with quiet energy, not the frantic rush of summer growth, but the patient, purposeful stirring of life returning to the world. Each tiny shoot is both ending and beginning, both fulfillment of last year's promise and seed of this year's hope. The morning light grows stronger, painting the emerging garden in shades of gold and green. In this sacred space, surrounded by the gentle miracle of spring's return, time seems to slow and deepen, creating a moment of perfect peace in the turning wheel of seasons. The morning mist clung to the garden beds like a gentle blessing, pearls of dew catching the first tentative rays of sunlight that filtered through the abbey walls. Brother Thomas moved slowly along the familiar paths, his weathered hands trailing over the herbs he had tended for more than 30 years. Beside him, young Brother William walked in thoughtful silence, knowing that this would be their final lesson together before his assignment to the monastery in Canterbury. The air was thick with the green scent of growing things, the sharp clarity of mint, the earthy sweetness of chamomile, the peppery warmth of thyme. Each breath seemed to carry with it the accumulated wisdom of countless seasons, the patient knowledge that only comes from years of watching, waiting, and learning to listen. "Here," a Brother Thomas said softly, kneeling beside a patch of comfrey with its broad, fuzzy leaves. "You remember what I taught you about the healing properties, yes?" William nodded, reciting the familiar uses for wounds, for broken bones, for inflammation. The older monk smiled, his fingers gentle on the plant's sturdy stem. "But do you remember what I told you about young Margaret, the baker's daughter, when she came to us with that terrible cut on her hand?" Thomas's voice was barely above a whisper, reverent in the morning stillness. "She was so frightened, shaking like a sparrow. The comfrey healed her wound, yes, but it was the time we spent talking about her fears, about her dreams of learning to read that truly made her well." They moved deeper into the garden, past the orderly rows of lavender that released their perfume with each footstep, past the tall stalks of angelica reaching toward the brightening sky. At the feverfew bed, Thomas paused again, his eyes distant with memory. "Brother Marcus used to suffer terribly from headaches," he murmured, gathering a few of the small, daisy-like flowers. "For months I gave him preparations of feverfew, and they helped, but only briefly. It wasn't until I truly listened, really listened, that I learned he was carrying the weight of his family's debts, worrying himself sick over his younger brother's welfare. The feverfew eased his pain, but addressing his worries, helping him find peace with what he could and couldn't control, that was the true healing. The sun climbed higher, painting the garden in shades of gold and green. Bees hummed drowsily among the borage flowers, their blue petals like fragments of summer sky. Brother Thomas settled onto a worn wooden bench beside the well, patting the space beside him for William to join. "The plants will teach you their secrets readily enough," Thomas said, his voice soft as the morning breeze. "You have learned to identify them, to prepare them, to understand their gifts. But the deepest healing, my dear brother, happens not in the mixing bowl or the drying room. It happens in the space between hearts, in the moment when someone feels truly seen and heard." William watched as a butterfly alighted on a nearby patch of calendula, its orange wings catching the light. "How do I know when to speak and when to simply listen?" he asked. Brother Thomas was quiet for a long moment, his gaze following the butterfly's gentle dance. "The herbs themselves will teach you this," he finally said. "Watch how they grow, not forcing their way, but responding to what the soil and season offer. Listen the way you listen to the garden in the early morning, when it tells you what it needs. Some days it needs water, some days it needs rest. People are the same." A bell began to toll softly in the distance, calling the brothers to morning prayers. But for these few precious moments, the garden held them in its peaceful embrace. The mint rustled gently in a passing breeze, the rosemary released its piney fragrance, and the sage seemed to nod with ancient understanding. "Remember," Brother Thomas said as they rose from the bench, "every person who comes seeking healing carries both a body that needs tending and a spirit that needs recognition. The chamomile will calm their nerves, yes, but your presence, patient, compassionate, without judgment, that may calm their deepest fears." As they walked slowly back toward the chapel, their footsteps soft on the earth paths, William felt the weight and wonder of this final teaching settling into his heart. Behind them, the garden continued its quiet work of growing, healing, and offering its gifts to all who approached with reverence and care. The herbs would follow him to Canterbury, dried and carefully preserved. But this deeper medicine, the art of healing through presence and compassion, would remain alive in every encounter, every moment of listening, every gentle word offered in the sacred space between one seeking heart and another ready to serve. The morning mist clings to the monastery walls like a gentle embrace, and Brother Thomas moves slowly through his beloved garden, his weathered hands trailing along the wooden fence posts worn smooth by decades of seasons. The air carries the sweet promise of apple blossoms, their delicate petals drifting down like nature's own blessing upon the carefully tended beds of herbs below. Today feels different. There is expectation in the way the larks sing their dawn chorus, a sense of beginning that mingles with the familiar comfort of routine. Brother Thomas has tended this garden for 40 springs, and he knows well the rhythm of renewal that each season brings. Yet today, something new stirs in the ancient cycle. The heavy wooden gate creaks on its iron hinges, and Brother Thomas looks up from the tender shoots of chamomile he has been examining. A young figure stands silhouetted against the morning light. Brother Peter, barely 18, with eager eyes and hands still soft from his life before the monastery walls. The boy clutches a simple wooden basket, his brown robe still unfamiliar on his slender frame. "Welcome, Brother Peter," Thomas says, his voice carrying the warmth of countless seasons. "The garden has been waiting for you." They walk together along the narrow paths that wind between raised beds, Thomas pointing to each plant as they pass. "Here grows the feverfew, its small white flowers like tiny stars against the dark earth. There, the comfrey spreads its broad leaves, ready to heal cuts and bruises with gentle efficiency." The young novice listens with the intensity of one who understands he is receiving something precious. "Every plant tells a story," Brother Thomas explains, kneeling beside a patch of newly sprouted lavender. "This lavender came from seeds my teacher, Brother Benedict, brought from France 50 years ago. Before that, his teacher carried them from Spain. Each generation tends, harvests, saves the seeds, passes them forward. Brother Peter nods, running his fingers through the soil. It is rich and dark, full of the accumulated wisdom of seasons past. Earthworms move slowly through the loam, and he watches them with wonder, understanding for the first time how even the smallest creatures play their part in this endless cycle of growth and renewal. Above them, the apple tree that stands at the garden's heart releases another gentle shower of blossoms. The petals settle on their shoulders, in their hair, blessing this moment of transfer from old hands to young. Brother Thomas reaches up and catches one perfect flower in his palm. "My teacher planted this tree," he says softly. "He told me that one day I would stand beneath its branches and teach another what he had taught me. I thought that day was very far away then. Time moves differently when you are young." They continue their slow circuit of the garden, Brother Thomas sharing the secrets that cannot be found in any book. How to tell when the chamomile is ready for harvest by the way the flowers turn their faces to the sun, which soil will nurture which plants, and how the phases of the moon guide the careful work of sowing and reaping. How to dry the herbs so they retain their healing power through the long winter months. Remember, Brother Thomas says, as they pause beside the well where cool water bubbles up from deep springs, "We are not masters of this garden. We are its servants, its guardians. The plants will teach you if you listen with patience. They will show you their gifts if you approach them with reverence." Brother Peter fills his basin with water, watching the ripples spread in perfect circles. He thinks of all the monks who have drawn water from this same well, all the hands that have tended these same plants, all the knowledge that has passed like a quiet river from one generation to the next. The sun climbs higher, warming their backs as they work side by side, preparing the beds for new seedlings. Their hands move in the soil with the same gentle motions that countless gardeners have used before them. Brother Peter plants his first seeds under Brother Thomas's watchful eye: basil for the kitchen, mint for the infirmary, sage for those who struggle with memories. As the morning draws toward noon, they rest in the shade of the apple tree. Brother Thomas closes his eyes and listens to the sounds that have remained unchanged for centuries: the buzz of bees among the flowers, the whisper of leaves in the breeze, the distant bells that mark the holy hours. The circle continues, he murmurs, watching Brother Peter examine each herb with careful attention. Knowledge passed from hand to hand, like seeds that carry within them all the harvests yet to come. The apple blossoms continue to fall, covering the garden in nature's own gentle benediction, blessing this moment when the ancient cycle begins once more. The sun hangs low in the western sky, painting the monastery walls in gentle shades of amber and rose. Brother Thomas closes the heavy wooden door of the herb storage room and breathes deeply, letting the day's work settle into his bones like sediment in still water. His weathered hands, stained green from the day's harvesting, rest quietly at his sides as he surveys the garden that has become his life's devotion. The evening air carries the lingering warmth of the day, soft and welcoming against his face. Each step along the familiar gravel path creates the gentlest of sounds, a whispered rhythm that harmonizes with the distant chanting of vespers drifting from the chapel. The stones beneath his sandaled feet have been worn smooth by decades of contemplative walks, each footfall a prayer in itself. He pauses beside the rosemary bushes, their needle-like leaves silvered in the dying light. Brother Thomas extends his hand, letting his fingers brush against the sturdy branches, releasing their sharp, cleansing fragrance into the cooling air. For remembrance, he whispers, the words barely audible above the soft rustle of leaves. The plant seems to respond to his touch, its essential oils rising like incense, carrying with them the memory of every soul who has found healing within these walls. Moving deeper into the garden's embrace, he comes to the lavender beds, their purple spires swaying gently in the evening breeze. The scent here is different, softer, more yielding, like a mother's lullaby made tangible. Brother Thomas kneels slowly, his knees finding the earth with the careful reverence of age and long practice. His fingers trace the delicate flowers, each tiny blossom a testament to patience and divine grace. "Grant us peace," he murmurs, his voice blending with the quiet hum of bees making their final visits of the day. The lavender releases its gift willingly, the fragrance washing over him in waves of tranquility. Here, in this moment between day and night, he feels the presence of all those who have knelt in this same spot, generations of brothers who have tended this sacred ground, their prayers soaking into the soil like gentle rain. Rising slowly, Brother Thomas continues his evening pilgrimage. The sage plants stand in neat rows, their gray-green leaves soft as velvet beneath his touch. The herb of wisdom, he thinks, remembering the countless times he has brewed its leaves for those seeking clarity of mind and spirit. The plant seems to glow in the twilight, its earthy scent grounding him to this place, this moment, this holy work. For understanding, he breathes, and the words seem to hang in the air like visible prayers. The sage rustles softly, as if acknowledging his petition, and Brother Thomas feels that familiar sense of connection not just to the plants in his care, but to something larger, more eternal. The shadows are lengthening now, creating pools of deeper blue between the raised beds. Brother Thomas walks among them, all the chamomile with its gentle, apple-like fragrance, the thyme releasing its warm, woody essence, the mint that grows with such enthusiasm along the garden's borders. Each plant holds its own secret, its own gift of healing, waiting patiently for the moment when it will be needed. In the distance, the abbey bells begin their evening song, their bronze voices calling the faithful to prayer. Brother Thomas stops walking and simply stands, surrounded by the garden's quiet congregation. The air around him is alive with fragrance, layers upon layers of herbal essence, creating an atmosphere thick with healing and holiness. He closes his eyes and lets the peace wash over him completely. Here, in this place where earth and heaven seem to touch, he understands his role in the eternal cycle. He is not just a gardener, but a guardian of ancient wisdom, a keeper of nature's pharmacy, a bridge between the suffering and the source of all comfort. The first stars are beginning to appear in the deepening sky, pinpricks of light that mirror the countless seeds of hope he has planted in this consecrated ground. Brother Thomas opens his eyes and takes one final look around his domain. Tomorrow will bring new needs, new opportunities to serve, new chances to witness the miracle of healing that grows so quietly, so persistently in the marriage of soil and spirit. With a heart full of gratitude, he makes his way toward the chapel, where evening prayers await. Behind him, the garden settles into its nighttime rhythms, the herbs releasing their fragrances into the darkness, their healing power flowing like an invisible river, eternal and patient, ready for all who seek its gentle grace.